white teeth, on beauty, and the forthcoming, the fraud. Please, please, put your hands together for Zadie Smith.
Hello, can you hear me? I want to speak to you today about a man called Craig McKinley, MP. Craig campaigns against flagship green policies and is presently accused of failing to declare the fact that 2 of his staffers have close ties to Net Zero Watch, which is a climate skeptic lobbying group that operates right out of these offices here on Tufton Street. But that's not actually how I know Craig. I first came across his name among the signatories of a letter to the Telegraph. It was penned by some Conservative parliamentarians who called themselves the Common Sense Group. And it accused the National Trust of being, quote, coloured by cultural Marxist dogma, colloquially known as the woke agenda. It was a very dramatic letter. And it was full of this sort of colourful language, but it lacked one vital ingredient: common sense. Because the direct financial relationship between, say, a National Trust property like Stowe House in Buckinghamshire and the Duke of Buckingham's sugar plantation in Jamaica is, of course, not a culturally Marxist fact. It's not even a woke fact. It's just an actual historical fact. And actual facts, even painful ones, are to me the very definition of common sense. They allow us to know the truth so we can live in reality rather than in delusion or denial. They are the sense we hold in common. Anyway, I feel a similar desire to share a common sense when I'm thinking of the planet as a whole. But I, like everybody, when it comes to the climate, lie to myself all the time. As G.K. Chesterton put it, men can always be blind to a thing so long as it is big enough. The truth is, if I stand here and rail against Tufton Street, but continue to walk around the place with a plastic bottle in my hand, then I fail to do even the smallest thing a citizen is called upon to do in a climate emergency. It's easy to accuse a man like Craig McKinley of shamelessness, but aren't we all of us a little shameless in our own ways? All in some form of denial. Though perhaps there is a difference between denying something yourself and encouraging denial in others. For that is the job of the people who work here in Tufton Street. Excuse me. Page turn. Uh-oh. Problem with fake nail people. There you go. Oh, could you? Thank you. Do they think of themselves as climate deniers? I doubt it. It's a bit like when Craig signed that letter to the Telegraph. He wasn't denying anything, really. He was only being pragmatic. The worldview of that letter was, what happened, happened. For God's sake, let's not spoil a nice cream tea in a National Trust property by actually thinking about history. And I imagine Craig and most of the people who work in Tufton Street likewise do not think of themselves as climate deniers per se. I bet Craig simply considers himself a common sense fiscal conservative. A man concerned for the health of the economy, who doesn't see why he and his friends should lose a lot of money in the short term for the sake of a long-term future he won't live to see anyway, because at some point, like all of us human beings, Craig McKinley will one day be dead. People tell themselves all kinds of things. Activists needn't care or know about the sort of things people tell themselves. It's an activist's job to act. But novelists can't help but wonder. We're different in that way. Activists get very angry, for example, at deniers of history, of science. But I actually prefer deniers to the sort of people you find in Tufton Street, who I would call pragmatists. Real denial has a strong Freudian aspect. It's a kind of repressed repulsion. Those who deny the Holocaust, for example, or who refuse to face the sheer scale of that system of racialized capital called slavery, all those people must surely at least possess deep down some real understanding of the horror. Otherwise, they'd have no need of denial. They simply embrace the murder and the profit and consider both a job well done. And you do meet such people now and then, Nazis and other assorted sociopaths, whose hatred is pure, undiluted, undisguised. I think a similar split exists within climate denial. You certainly do meet the purely sociopathic and ideological. The technocratic banking bros, who know climate change is real but feel confident it'll be solved by market and tech, as wealth in their minds will always solve the problems that wealth creates, and who believe that anyone interfering in this process is by definition a resentful communist trying to tank the economy. Or